What are PvPers' least favorite month out of the year? March. What's going on, YouTube? It is the weekend. Twitch drops are enabled. We did a stream earlier. We're inside the Hollow City, inside of Cold Harbor, to go over our first of 2 weekend vendors. Now, restart this week with some Briarheart. Are these not hearts? Wait, what is a Briarheart? I'm gonna need a fact check on that. What actually is a Briarheart? Then we also have a gigantic mammoth skull. I actually bought this not in the vendor, and I had to pay a little bit of a premium for it because I thought, man, a mammoth head is actually pretty dope. Oh gosh, this looks graphic. Like it ripped it right out of the mammoth. And the Reach people continue to innovate by putting random things on places. And this beehive, I think, is new. 3,000 gold for a beehive actually seems like a bit of a banger proposition, honestly. So overall, luxury vendor, we look at these items because maybe you want to buy it for yourself. Maybe you want to resell it. The Reach Skull Mammoth is a pretty good one because it just universally is good. That's crazy. Put those coming out of the ground for your horror themed houses. Oh my goodness. The banners are a bit lackluster, but 3,000, excuse me, gold for a beehive that's interactable, visual FX. That seems like a really good deal. Before we jump into the next vendor, we are 17 subscribers away from our next milestone. So please hit the subscribe button because we're inside our High Rock gate inside of Cyrodiil. Now you can also find these at your gates as well. Link in the description below if you need help finding these bad boys through ESO Helper. We have a whole web page that breaks these bad boys down. But this week is actually a special weekend because pretty much every PvP set is available to be purchased. Now, that means the sets that are dropped from PvP, not sets that are necessarily good for PvP, because that'd be a whole other random loot pool. But there are some options here that are pretty special. And this is the first time I believe that these have been discounted. The 375,000 alliance points. Now, alliance points you could see are pretty easy to get during this event, and this is going to be necklaces this week, rings next week. So when it comes to this week, you're probably thinking to yourself, Jake, what exactly are the ones to focus on for this week? And there's quite a few. And it's important to also consider too that if you're somebody who wants these sets and doesn't have any alliance points, the market is going to be flooded with them. If you take a little trip down to Mournhold, Eldenroot, Wayrest, you're going to see all of these sets here just for differing degrees of value. People are probably going to sell these on console between 60 to 90,000 gold, which if you have a few million AP or even just a little bit of AP and you're thinking to yourself, let me buy some of these ones that Jake is about to suggest to me and throw them on the market. It's important to remember too that rings will be available next week. But just because rings will be available next week and sometimes they have a little bit more value doesn't necessarily mean that necklaces are invaluable, because a lot of people like to wear mythic rings. Some of the best, rings out there are mythics. So usually you need at least one of both of them. The nice thing too is that a lot of people like to wear their PvP sets, the ones that are available here, as jewelry, because jewelry pieces especially don't interrupt with what's on the body piece. So you could flex some light, medium or heavy pieces, and people like to wear their their wretched vitalities on their body or their other crafted sets, whether it's Clever Alchemist, Mechanical Accruity, the Bibbidi Bobbidi sets, gives them more flexibility over their pieces that they get to wear, and if they want to make them light, medium or heavy. So all that being said, which ones of these are worth buying? Deadly is probably the most universally good set out of all of these. It's fantastic for Templars, fantastic for Arcanists, and they just happen to be some of the most popular classes in the game. Another one that's just universally purchased, even though it feels like it's not used as often, is Vicious Death. Vicious Death is the set that makes people blow up and then die, and then more people blow up and die. And it's pretty jarring if you've ever been bombed before. And that's because it continuously gains damage the more players that are killed by its explosion. It's a staple set for PvP. Plague Break, another fantabulous set, kind of similar, except it focuses on you cleansing yourself and then getting a little disease pours all over you. Rallying Cry is like the staple PvP set. When people think of PvP sets, they think of Rallying Cry. It is generically good because it gives you bonuses while Battle Spirit is active. It can give you up to 300 weapon and spell damage and 1650 crit resistance. It's easy to proc. It's easy to keep with its great uptime. And it's great. This one is more interesting and divisive, but it's Mara's Balm. Mara's Balm was nerfed pretty significantly, but it still sees a lot of utilization. So now we're going to think more from a profit perspective. There's a lot of people out there that are buying and selling Mara's Balm. There's a good supply and demand for it still. So potentially it's not one that I would recommend you use, but when it comes to selling it, that's a whole other ball game. A ball game that you may want to play. Another decent one that you'll see a lot of movement around is Oak Father. Gives you a lot of penetration against enemies for having a lot of buffs. You could see and you could think, wow, people are usually pretty buffed in PvP, and you also gain some weapon and spell damage to go along with it for each minor buff that they have. Another really kind of staple set that you're going to see a lot of is Dark Convergence. If you've ever thought to yourself, why did I just get pulled into a blue black hole? It's Dark Convergence. It's a staple set. Its resellability doesn't seem as high as some of its predecessor, like Vicious Death. For some reason, I see more sales on my Vicious Death versus my Dark Convergence, but it's still another one that's really good to sell. Then there's Sentry. This might be a good one for this week because when you begin to crouch, you gain stealth detection for 10 seconds. This can occur once every 30 seconds. So all those people who were hiding in the Imperial City, you can now see them. And it's 5 piece of 266 weapon and spell damage. That's not nothing either. Now it's 2, 3, and 4 is like okay, but being able to pull people out of stealth easily by seeing them is pretty underrated in my opinion. And I've seen a lot of people put a lot more emphasis on this set, but a lot of people aren't buying it because it's one of the more annoying sets to get. So this could be a good resell also. And it's important to also consider too that if you're somebody who wants these sets and doesn't have any alliance points, the market is going to be flooded with them. If you take a little trip down to Mournhold, Eldenroot, Wayrest, you're going to see all of these sets here just for differing degrees of value. People are probably going to sell these on console between 60 to 90,000 gold, which if you have a few million AP or even just a little bit of AP and you're thinking to yourself, let me buy some of these ones that Jake is about to suggest to me and throw them on the market. It's important to remember too that rings will be available next week, but just because rings will be available next week and sometimes they have a little bit more value doesn't necessarily mean that necklaces are invaluable, because a lot of people like to wear mythic rings. Some of the best, rings out there are mythics. So usually you need at least one of both of them. The nice thing too is that a lot of people like to wear their PvP sets, the ones that are available here, as jewelry. Because jewelry pieces especially don't interrupt with what's on the body piece, so you can flex some light, medium, or heavy pieces, and people like to wear their, their Wretched Vitalities on their body or their other crafted sets, whether it's Clever Alchemist, Mechanical Accruity, the Bibbidi Bobbidi sets, gives them more flexibility over their pieces that they get to wear and if they want to make them light, medium, or heavy. So all that being said, which ones of these are worth buying? Another one that I wanted to shout out to is Ancient Grace. I actually had to purchase this for myself because I love Ancient Grace, seeing how it interacts with sets like Crafty, building max mag builds, which will always find a spotlight in a meta. And Ancient Grace is a really good set to do that for. So honestly, this is a pretty good investment as well, just because, sets like the Marken Ring are, rising in value and popularity. And then you need some 3-piece sets to go with them. And not very many people sell 3-piece sets, and Ancient Grace is a good one to put with them. And the reason why too is if you're buying coffers, for example, like for Imperial Wrath, which gives you 129 weapon and spell damage and a 3-piece of 329 weapon and spell damage to your ranged direct damage abilities, you sometimes are going to get pieces that you just don't want, like weapons. So you're usually wanting jewelry. So this is a guaranteed way to get jewelry, or if you're buying it from another player, well, you're guaranteed to get the jewelry pieces that way. So I'm a huge fan of both of these sets. Especially if you're thinking to yourself, I really like the Marken Ring and I want to be able to use that for PvP, because that is a very popular PvP mythic. Those of you who don't know, it gives you an extra bonus for every 3-piece set that you're wearing. So instead of wearing 5-piece sets, which you could do, you can now wear a bunch of 3-piece sets to build out some extra bonuses, that being 100 armor or 1,000 armor and 1,000 weapon and spell damage. And that's per 3-piece. So you could stack that as many times as you're able to put on, which is 3 times versus only wearing 2 if you were to wear 2 5-piece sets. And that would also take away your ability to wear a monster set then as well. So it's really unique to build with them because there's not as many 3-piece sets in the game as there are 5-piece sets. And I love that mythic. Here it is also just for reference since I've talked about it so much. But thank you, ladies and gentlemen. There's a lot of good sets. If you have any more, suggest them in the comments below. It's a bit of a weird week because next week we know that there's going to be a bunch of rings. And then we know that it's going to be the exact same sets. So I'm personally looking forward to getting some Ancient Grace. I want to see if that 3-piece set is really good or not. So I'm going to do a little bit of experimenting with that bad boy. But everyone, thank you guys so much again for watching. As always, we're doing our 3 giveaway drawings. All you need to do to enter is leave a comment, comments below / like on the video. Second thing is for the second drawing is just make sure to subscribe. We're like 13 subscribers away from our next goal. The third thing is look for a hidden word to be flashed on the screen. If you're the first person to find and comment that word, you will win. We'll also be live again tomorrow and Sunday, and I'll catch you guys later. Bye, guys.
You better remember to like and subscribe to Jakeclips. Or you should. I might have to pluck your eyes if you don't. Or, better yet, I'll skip rope with your entrails. Do it now. Subscribe. Ta-ta. Off with you.